Get on up.
Everybody right there.
Get into it.
Everybody right there.
Get involved.
Everybody just come on up. Come on up.
Hello and welcome to The Public Good. This is Andrea O'Sullivan sitting in for Sam Magavern from Partnership for the Public Good, or PPG, which unites 268 community organizations working to build a better Buffalo. We're delighted to join you here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Today we're joined by Timothy Hogues, Commissioner of the Department of Senior Services of Erie County. Don't forget to follow PPG on Facebook and Twitter, and of course you can always get great information on our website, ppgbuffalo.org. The Public Good is sponsored in part by Univera Healthcare, real people who really care. Video of this show is up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/ppgbuffalo. You can also find videos from previous week's shows and other interviews on our YouTube page. Before we begin speaking to Commissioner Hogues, we're going to have just a couple announcements. So first, we're really excited to invite you to our own 10th anniversary celebration. PPG turns 10 this fall, and we're diving into the theme of beauty and democracy. And we'll have a celebration on October 5th at 6 p.m. at the Albright Knox Art Gallery. And this is going to feature a number of local artists. We'll have some music from Drea Deneur, who recently has created the great show The Spirit of Nina. We'll have dance from the Differential Flava crew of Verve Dance Studio. We'll have poetry from two really acclaimed Buffalo poets and more that evening. So please join us October 5th, 6 p.m. at the Albright Knox Art Gallery. That's free and open to the public. Second, Open Buffalo, our partner, is holding a youth community builder essay contest, and they're calling out for young people to write in on these questions. If you had $2,500 to solve a problem that you see in your community, what would the problem be, and what would you do about it to create change? And they've suggested some community issues that maybe young people are passionate about and want to write about. It could be things like safe transportation, vacant property, public art, job training, public safety, addressing environmental challenges, but really it's totally open. Any ideas to address a problem that young people are passionate about. And those essays can be sent by email to info@openbuffalo.org, or mail them or bring them in person to Open Buffalo, 617 Main Street, Suite 350 in Buffalo, New York. And all entries are due no later than October 10th. That's the Youth Community Builder Essay Contest. So now we're here with Tim Hogues, and we're going to have a nice talk about the Department of Senior Services, I think diving into what services can people experience, maybe some announcements of what you've got coming up, and some other stories and issues. So welcome to the Public Good.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm excited.
So first, Tim, I'd love to just hear some of the big picture services that the department provides.
Yeah, and so the department, so not a lot of people really understand exactly what the department does, and so opportunities like this we jump at because it's great for individuals to be able to take advantage of it. And so we do everything from transportation to wellness classes to in-home services for the elderly. And so those are vital things. And so our focus at Erie County Senior Services is to make sure that seniors have the ability to age in place. And so what we mean by age in place is live their latter years in their home, right? And so who wants to have to move to a facility? Sometimes it's necessary, but if we have the supports available for that individual to stay in their home and stay with the quality of life, that's important to us, and so that's what we look to do. We also, it's been big in the news a lot lately, but we've been doing it for years, is working with caregivers. And caregivers play a vital role in keeping individuals in their homes. And so we realize that sometimes caregivers get burnt out, and so we have services to handle and take care of some of the needs of the caregivers. And so it's those type of important services that we provide. Everyone's talking about transportation, and you mentioned that as far as maybe that's one of the conversations that the young people have.
Mm.
It's critical for older adults as well, and so getting to not only their doctor's appointments and to the grocery store, but we like to make sure that they have the ability for socialization, and so that combats the isolation and then depression and those types of things. So it's important.
And I think let's look more at this concept of aging in place.
Mm-hmm.
So in your work with seniors, what are the factors that tend to make the difference? What means that someone who wants to can stay in their
Mm-hmm.
home and continue?
So usually one of the most important factors is having that informal caregiver. So whether it be a family member or someone in the community or neighborhood that is really stepped up to really help that individual out.
Mm.
And then it's being able to provide the services that they need. And so one of the programs that I'm proud of and that New York State Office for the Aging has offered is something called consumer directed. And so usually we contract with the agency to provide in-home services, so an aide will come to the home and take care of the individual. Well, our county is very unique, and so it has city, urban, and rural areas, and sometimes it's difficult to staff those cases out in the rural areas. So the consumer-directed program allows for a loved one, a family member, someone in the neighborhood to actually get paid to do what they've already been doing to help that individual stay independent and in their home. And so that's a game changer for us, because we know there's an aid shortage as far as the county and actually across the country. There's that discussion of being able to get enough aides to take care of the individuals as we begin to aid, because people are staying alive a lot longer, and so that's a great thing to have. And so it's a good problem for us to try and figure out how do we supply the aids to make sure that people have that quality of life in their home.
Okay, and so for consumer-directed care, it's keeping that health care local, someone from their family or neighborhood who most likely they already know, and
Right,
they can invite
yeah.
them to be compensated for the work they're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And so people tend to do it out of the kindness of their heart, but we want to say, hey, there's an opportunity for you to be compensated for doing what you do, because it's a huge impact to the system and to the family, and for us it helps us out as well. And so we want to see people successful, and so that's some of the key factors that really help us out.
Mm. And I read on your website that 85% of elder care is provided by friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be good also to hear what are some of the services or issues that come up for these caregivers.
Right. And so some are getting help with bathing, eating, preparing meals, chores around the house. So it's the simple things that we take for granted, but as we age, it becomes difficult for us to be able to achieve. And so it's those types of things that are huge, that make the difference. And we know that the cost of care in the community is almost half as it would be to be in a facility. And so that's a bonus for the system as well. We always start to talk about the growing cost of health care and taking care of individuals. And so for us to be successful, we started partnering with individuals to make sure that we can transition individuals that are appropriate to be cared for in the community. And so one of the programs that we started several years back was our Ready, Set, Home program. And that was a New York State Department of Health balancing incentive program, and it was the Innovation Award. So we were one of several organizations across the state that were able to win this grant award. And so we did some great stuff. And I remember our very first one that we were able to get home out of the hospital. So we'll call her Mrs. H. And so Mrs. H had been in the facility for a couple years. And so she didn't believe that she was going to be able to get home. And through our Ready, Set, Home program, we had case managers that were embedded into the interdisciplinary team of the hospital. So they made the rounds and they listened to some of the issues that individuals are having, and they came across Mrs. H. And so when we engaged her, this was around early December time frame, and I'll never forget it. One of the things she said was, the only thing I want to do is be able to make it home for Christmas. And so through the partnership of our program and working with the state and some local contractors, we were able to successfully get Mrs. H home. And she's been home ever since. And so one of the big issues is individuals presenting themselves at the emergency room, like time and time again, because that was the only way that they would enter into the system. So a lot of times they wouldn't get their normal checkups, and so only when something happened, an emergency happened, then they would present themselves in the emergency room. And so that was one of the deliverables of the grant, is to reduce that. And so Mrs. H was the story that we tell all across the country as far as her success, and I still go by the house today just when I'm driving. So we did a lot of work on her home to make it accessible for her to be able to be independent. And so we put a wheelchair lift in, widened some doorways and some other stuff. And so the beautiful thing about it is that when you looked at the case at face value, some question, because the house didn't seem like it was really worth putting in that investment. But I'm proud to say that, like I said, I drive by there all the time, and so there has been a new roof that has been put on the home. There's a new driveway that was done, and so we started it with stabilizing it, making it possible for her to come home, and so it has continued. So that was money well invested, well spent, and so it saved so much money. And so through that program, in the 18 months that we ran it saved over $1.5 million, right? And so those are the types of things that yes, you have to spend some money up front, but the payment in the long run is huge.
In economic terms, and then, as you said, in the kind of well-being for individuals in the community. Yeah. And some of our partners at PPG are working on kind of creative solutions, and one of them works on co-living for seniors. So I was wondering, how much of that are we seeing start up in Erie County? And
so we have we participate in a national organization, and the last one that we went to, there were some individuals presenting on that concept, and so I think we're going to start to look at the benefits of that. And so they talked about college-age students living in the same facility as seniors, and so the benefits both ways, right? And so the seniors get someone that comes and visits with them and have that type of conversation, but then also the seniors are able to impart some wisdom the youth as far as, hey, maybe you don't want to try and do this. And so one of the things that sort of focuses on that, our county executive several years back designated Erie County, joined on board as an age-friendly community. And so Age-Friendly New York talks about designing neighborhoods in the community so that it's a fit for all. And so we know a lot of times as individuals get older in New York, they tend to move out and go down south or other places. And so we're looking at that and saying, hey, how can we keep our older adults here in New York State? And so we've looked at street design, the accessibility of grocery stores and that sort of thing, the transportation and those type of things, living facilities, right? And so as individuals get older, we thought about even talking to builders and designers, right? And so they don't want to have to travel up a flight of stairs, right? And so how can we create spaces that are age-friendly, one-level ranches that are appealing? And so we're looking at those types of things, and we partnered with the UB Idea Center to move that forward, and AARP. And so I believe it's really going to have a huge impact on how we look. And it's all about the planning, right? It's all about the forethought and thinking about it before people start putting stakes in grounds and creating that type of thing, because it's huge. And so the planning part is happening now, and so we'll see results. And one thing that we learned about was the community did a mock neighborhood. So they used cardboard and some other stuff to say, hey, this is what it might look like if our neighborhood was age-friendly. And that's low cost to be able to do something like that. And then if it seemed like it worked, then you can go ahead and do those types of things.
Okay, and who created that model? Was it young people?
Yeah, so it's a mixture. It's a mixture. And so that's the important part, involving multiple individuals from the neighborhoods, from the communities, to really have input. And that's big with us because I think in the past we assume that we know what individuals need and what they want. And so it's a funny thing when you just go and talk to them and find out. They say, no, I don't want that. I don't need that. But I would prefer to have something like this.
Well, speaking of community input, I know you're here as well today to tell us about public hearings that the department has coming up.
So thank you. So we have 2 public hearings scheduled coming up, and this is the opportunity for the community to give us feedback on what's important for them, what we can focus on additionally in 2018. And so our first public hearing will be at the Meriwether Library on October 24th starting at 1 p.m. And so we're inviting the public to come, young and old, and give us their ideas of what's happening, what's going on, what would they like to see the department do. The department focuses on person-centered care, and that talks about talking to individuals and finding out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and trying new things. I talk to my staff all the time about, hey, let's try something new. And if it doesn't work, we'll regroup and look at it and go at it again. But just doing the status quo, it just doesn't work anymore. Given the reduction in funding and some other stuff, we have to get creative. And so then the other one is going to be at the East Aurora Senior Center, and that's located at 101 King Street in East Aurora, and that's going to be November 9th, and that's going to start at 12:30 p.m. And so we have one in the city and then one in the rural areas, so we can capture as many people as possible and get as much input as possible into what would they like to see, because we're here to serve, right? And so we get dollars and we get opportunities, and so we should really be listening to our customers, right? And saying, hey, what is it, how can we better serve you?
That's great. Yeah, we're all about community collaboration and input here. And here at PPG, we also help convene a language access working group for Buffalo and Erie County. And I was wondering, as we get more diverse and have more and more languages spoken, that group works on getting more medical interpretation, getting city departments, county departments to have more language and interpretation access. So is that an issue that's coming up for seniors as well? Maybe when you talk about in-home care, are there aides? Is there a lack of aides that speak the very many diverse languages we have now?
Yeah, so that's a great question that you brought up. And so one of the things that I made a priority when I became commissioner was to really focus on diversifying our Senior Services Advisory Board. And so our advisory board gives us advice on what we should do and what's going on in the community. And so we made sure that we reached out to a diverse community to talk about those things and talk about those issues, whether it be in-home services or transportation or meals and that sort of stuff. And so the other thing that the county executive did was he started a New Americans Committee. And so we sit on that committee to better understand what the issues are. And so we in Senior Services, we do utilize the access line to make sure that we are able to communicate with individuals from different backgrounds and different languages. Although it's difficult to use the line sometimes because of some things are lost in translation as far as what's going on, but that is a huge focus of my department, and we're continuing to look for new ways to be creative and to serve those populations. And that's where that consumer directed is huge, right? And so you have someone from your culture that you're comfortable with entering in your home and providing those services for you. And so we're even looking for agencies, right? So if individuals have that entrepreneurial spirit and want to start up a home care agency and they have the wherewithal to do that, I mean, that's huge for us, right? Because we know that we're getting that population growth, and so we're always looking to be able to effectively serve.
So there is this age shortage, as you said, and the department is open to new providers from many diverse backgrounds.
We're always
to get in.
looking, we're always looking.
So I mentioned that PPG is having our 10th anniversary, and our theme is beauty and democracy. And we're asking many of our partners to think about those questions of how do those two topics relate. And we're kind of capturing experiences that bring beauty into the community by opening up a participation process. So I wonder, as we think about maybe a few stories you'd like to share, does anything speak to that? What's a moment of beauty from your work that you might like to share?
One of the partnerships that we've developed is with the Pride Center of Western New York, and so once again, just reaching out and having conversation. We had an individual that was from the Pride Center join our advisory board, and so we talked about accessing services. And so the gentleman said, hey, most of the people from the Pride Center or the LGBTQ community don't feel comfortable coming downtown to your department. And so we were able to co-locate one of our case managers at the Pride Center to provide those services. And so it was a win-win opportunity for us. And actually it went so successful that they ended up hiring our case manager to be full-time there to help out with those types of issues. And so since that point, we've done so many different collaborations with the Pride Center, just opening up the information and access and communication of what's going on. We opened up through that dialogue, we were able to open up a congregate dining spot that was LGBTQ friendly. And so they were excited about that. So just listening, they gave us the feedback that, hey, a lot of our members don't feel comfortable going to your traditional dining sites for whatever reason. And so we were able to respond by listening and joining up and figuring this problem out together, and we came up with a great solution. And so it's those types of things when you listen, and then you're able to not only listen but to act on some of the plans that you put together. And so that it's a great collaboration that continues to produce.
So another example of really efforts to open up the department's services and provide for more of the diverse communities we have here in Erie County. And so as we wrap up, I wonder, I think you said you've been in this position about a year now, and you're going to do these public hearings to get all types of input. But if you had to name a few priorities for the year or years ahead, what would those be?
So once again, having seniors being able to age in place is huge. And so how do we do that? A focus of mine is on transportation, right? And so we want to combat isolation. So we want the seniors to be able to age in place, and where appropriate, to be able to get out and enjoy life. So if you think about your independence now that you have, you don't only just go to the supermarket and to the doctor's office. You go see friends, you go to the park, you go to plays and those types of things. So that's huge, and we're going to continue to figure out those things. And hopefully I can come back soon and talk about one of the initiatives that we're working on. It's hush-hush right now because it's in the planning stages, but I think it'll be a game changer for individuals to be able to be mobile. Another big initiative is focusing on caregivers. Once again, the work we do, we can't do it without caregivers. They are a vital part to everything that we do in caring for those loved ones. And then also volunteers, right? So our RSVP program, we coordinate over 900 volunteers that provide services in so many different areas, and they've provided over 125,000 hours. Last year in 2016, we're probably going to surpass that this year, and so those types of connections are so huge.
And what are some of the things that the RSVP volunteers tend to do?
So they deliver Meals on Wheels, they volunteer at the zoo, they volunteer at a bunch of our cultural institutes. They do a lot of companion type stuff, just going to visit seniors and talking to them. And so the volunteers themselves say they get a lot out of it. And so they're there to serve, but they end up getting fulfillment out of it. And so they stay active. And so it's just awesome to be able to provide those types of things. And we know on the federal level, we've heard conversations about funding possibly being reduced for RSVP programs, and that would be a huge loss on so many levels. So that's important to us. And then advocacy. We look to advocate for funding for our senior programs, like the RSVP program, like the transportation program. The Older Americans Act funding has been pretty much flat, and so if it's been flat, it's like a decrease in funding because of everything is starting to cost more and more. And so those are huge things for us to do, and so we serve so many people in so many different ways. It's the department plays a critical role, and we do so many things that people aren't aware of. We even serve under 60, and so we call a senior 60 years of age, but we have our New York Connects line that serves under 60 that are disabled, and so we provide information and assistance to so many individuals throughout the year. And so it's those critical type things that are so important to us. I'm just looking at my notes, and so last year we serviced over 18,000 people as far as calling into our New York Connects line to just get information and assistance and understand what's going on. And then one of the bigger things that we were able to do in conjunction with the county executive this year was we were able to get Ruthie's Law instituted. And so that's the making sure that nursing homes report injuries, serious injuries to loved ones in a timely manner, and so we can follow up with that. And so, like we said, we want to keep individuals in their home when appropriate, but there are times when it's appropriate for them to enter into a skilled nursing facility or nursing home, and so we want them to still have that quality of life, and so that's a priority for not only the department but for the county executive, Mark Bolenkars, as well.
That's right. Yeah, setting those standards and having that accountability is so important.
It's huge.
So just two questions. First is if any of our listeners would like to start volunteering with some of your programs.
Oh, that is awesome.
Where do they go? Who do they get in touch with?
If you are looking to volunteer, you can call 858-8526. Once again, that's 858-8526 from 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
And then since so many elder care is provided by caregivers, some of our listeners may be caregivers themselves. So how can they find out about services or workshops that you might be putting on that's really for caregivers and making sure they take care of themselves as well?
That is wonderful. So once again, I'll give that number again. I love to give shameless plugs. And so our New York Connects line, which is our information and assistance, is 858-8526. And you can use that number to find out about everything that's going on with Erie County Senior Services, or if you just have questions about whatever, right? And so we have the ability to link individuals. We have a skilled case management system and staff that will go above and beyond to make sure that you make that right linkage. And so once again, that's 858-8526.
Thank you so much, Tim. And as we close, just invite you to read out one more time the time and location of the public hearings.
Sure. So the first public hearing will be held at Meriwether Library, located at 1324 Jefferson Avenue, and that's going to be October 24th, and that starts at 1 p.m. And then our second public hearing will be at the East Aurora Senior Center, and that's located at 101 King Street in East Aurora, New York, and that will begin at 12:30 p.m. We invite you to come out and please provide as much input as you like. But if you can't make it and you like to call us, well, guess what? The number is 858-8526, and we welcome your input.
Thanks so much to Commissioner Tim Hogues from the Department of Senior Services for joining us. I'm Andrea O'Sullivan with Partnership for the Public Good. Join us next week, Tuesday, October 3rd at 7 p.m. here on Power 96 FM and Mix 1080 AM. We'll be diving into our 10th anniversary theme of beauty and democracy with some special guests. That's the Public Good, Tuesday at 7 p.m.